response has been incredible, and the number of questions and follow-ups. So we're so happy that we can be providing this. This is one of a series of interactive webinars that we're providing for BJ's Drug Court Technical Assistance Project, and I just wanted to reference, if it wasn't already mentioned, that these are really designed to address issues people are encountering in the field, and they're really a complement to great webinars that Justice for Vets and National Institute for Corrections puts out on the basic principles. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kerwin, who's going to then follow up. Thank you.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. Good morning, wherever you are, what's the country that you're on. Once again, thank you for being a part of the follow-up session. As Carolyn said, we had some really good feedback from the first presentation. So we definitely encourage you, for those of you that wanted to ask questions during the first session, please feel free to ask them using the question and answer panel on this session. Be too long, just give it over to Jack, but as Kim mentioned, I am lead on our Veterans Initiative here in the office, so if there's any technical assistance needs that any sections that you work with out there may need, please feel free to shoot me or office an email and let us know how we assist of assistance. Without further ado, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mr. O'Connor.
Everyone, or good morning, depending on where you are. Thank you again for joining us. I've been receiving some calls and emails from some of the participants. It appears that I know you, and hope you're all having a good day. Again, to you veterans, thank you for your service, and to the Vietnam vets, welcome home, and I sincerely mean that. I'm going to start out with some of the questions that were answered. I'm just looking at a question on the screen. Will we be able to get slide presentations and other materials from the session? Yes, you will, I'm sure. We contracts, mentor contracts, handbooks. You can have the PowerPoint. Anything you need, maybe Monica can discuss it later, and we'll tell you how to get them. But let me start with a question from Judge David Jordan up in East Lansing. Some good points that I'd like to cover. His first point, he talked about when bad things happen in the court, meaning the judge puts someone in jail, someone's thrown out of the program. Sometimes mentors and mentees will start talking about this. And that's not good when there's a lot of conversation going on about what happened mentee in the program. And he asked if there's a structure that can test this. And there is. At least for my mentors there is. It's the mentor contract. It says in there that you will not discuss about mentees with either other mentors or mentees, and we can ask them if they quit the program, not to discuss what's going on. And they sign it, and they have to do this before they start. I know there's no meat in this, but at least they know that I've had that conversation with them, that these discussions and things that happen in the court are not for general announcements. So the best answer I can give is to look at the mentor contract and do this. The second point he brought up is an excellent one. If you're in a veterans court, sometimes there are suicides. There have been several suicides in court and in many of the courts that I've went to. And they're extremely awful situations. But I'd like to address what it does to the mentor. Mentor that has been assigned to someone has taken their own life. You have to be careful of the effect on the mentor also, and I am. And it's took me years to understand this. I didn't know this when I first started. Now we'll sit down with the mentor and use our vet center, and the vet center counsels the mentor on his needs. It brings out many of his symptoms. He has PTSD. So the coordinator must really watch this and sit a mentor down for a while. Usually in those situations, I'll ask the mentor to take a month off and get his counseling, and then come back when he's ready. The point Judge Jordan made was not size fits all, and I really hope when I talked the last time that I didn't give anyone the impression that the Buffalo model was the only one. If you'd switch the screen, Monica, to the very first page, know, you can see there, mentoring models vary. And I want to really hope I got that across to you. There's large programs, there's small programs, there are programs that have team effects. They're the gold standard programs that have, I call them gold standard, that have not-for-profits that run them. They have so many more resources available to them. And I think the two examples I gave were in San Diego. So keep that in mind. What fits you is but there are key concepts that are listed there that I think all programs have to follow. You're not counselors. You're not drill sergeants. Maintain confidentiality. I know that's a tough one. Do it. You're going to have no program unless someone's going to hurt themselves or others. But most importantly, a mentor's a friend. You know, can get thrown out of the Buffalo program. That doesn't mean I won't talk to them. I keep up with some of the guys that didn't make it. It's my job to judge them. It's my job to help them, whether they're in the program or not. Okay, then I'll read. What you had success with in getting mentees to engage with mentors on more than a superficial level? That's a good question. Some courts demand that every mentee have a mentor. Some courts do not assign until the 91st day, and there's a clinical reason for that. I won't get into it, but basically it's during the first 90 days, many of the people are still suffering the effects of drug and alcohol abuse and coping with their mental illness, and it's not a good time to be applying a mentor. Others, like Buffalo, we assign one right away to the person. But let me say this: if they don't get along, stop it. We've had situations where the mentor and mentee did not hit it off, whether they're Marine to Marine, infantry to infantry, Navy to Navy. Man, they just didn't hit it off. And in the beginning, I had issues with this. Now I don't. It's any other relationship. Some work, some don't. So we'll change the mentor. We have no problem with that. That answers your question. And now, Sherwin, I think if you have the list of 10 questions, you can read them.
Sure. We'll start. We had a couple questions come in earlier, and I'll just mention one of them because it relates, I think, to what you were just speaking on. Question refers to any information about mentees matching them with mentors, like what I guess qualities or what qualifying factors of a mentee and mentor to match them up in a relationship.
Yeah, it's a great question. In fact, most courts get into this right away, whether you're large or small. I will try, and I think many of the courts that I've been in will try to match Marine with Marine. Really, a Marine wants to talk to another Marine. So we do that. Infantry, I found, infantry likes to speak to infantry. If Navy, if I can do it that way, I'll do it that way. Sometimes it's profession. If I see a guy that's maybe a contractor, he's in trouble now, and I have a mentor that's a contractor, sometimes that works. But yeah, you match them up by gender sometimes, by specialty. But role of service is really big, especially the mentor and the Marine and the infantry. That doesn't have to always stay. I think there's another question, so I'll wait. If you have 2 or 3 mentees per mentor, you might not be able to have that mentor in court all the time, and you have to be able to switch it off. But we'll talk about that in a minute. So I hope I answered that question. I try to match them up by what branches they were in, or maybe what they do for a living, gender, if that's important to the person. If we have a woman in our court and she really wants to speak to another woman, we have 8 female mentors. So every court's a little different, but we try to match them up that way.
The next question that we had come up is a question on how to deal with intimate relationships between mentees.
Mentor and mentees.
Between mentees.
Well, interesting. So 2 people in the court, if I'm hearing this right, are having a relationship.
Yes.
I'm not going to get involved in that. I think the court or the counselors are going to be involved in that. I don't know if I have a problem with that. Sorry, I can't answer that one better than that. or it could happen because they see each other in the court. Are they supporting each other? Is it good for their therapy? I mean, I don't know, and maybe I can do a little more research on that one. But I think the counselors for would have comments on that.
Okay. And another question we actually had.
But I would like to say, the one I asked, if you're mentoring a mentee, that's going to stop quickly. That mentor is going to have to leave. I'm not going to allow that, or our other courts, to have the mentor having an intimate relationship with the mentee while the person's in court.
Right, absolutely. Another question we had that just came up, one of the counties is starting a veterans treatment court and plans to not use mentors. Is there evidence out there about the effects of mentors or the lack of with veterans treatment courts?
Yes, in fact, let me answer that in maybe stages. Most courts that start do not have mentors. They start usually as a track in a mental health court, and it's tough for a judge or others to accept the principle of mentors. Here's a non-paid person that's going to be part of the team that really isn't skilled in anything other than he's a veteran. There's a study out there, and if you contact Justice for Vets, they will give that study that programs that use mentors have a much better success rate. I do not have that study in front of me. I did, but you can get it, Kerwin, from Justice for Vets, and there are other studies, I think, going on now. But I would strongly recommend that court try to use mentors. Pledge or whoever doesn't want to use them, I guess they won't. But the mentors can do so much in bringing 501c3, bringing monetary services to the court. Plus, and this from all the courts I've visited, sometimes will not tell the judge what's really going on because he doesn't trust the court system, doesn't trust the police. We have mostly felonies in our court. When they first come in, they have a chip on their shoulder, but they will tell another veteran. So you got to start there to getting that person into correct counseling. Many veterans will tell, many of the mentees will tell, happens on a weekly basis. The mentor's something and asks for his advice. How do I tell the judge this? Well, here's how you tell him. You tell him the truth. Let's go in and talk to him. And a little bit of support will have the mentee be able to get up and honestly talk to the judge. So I hope they would test it or try it. If they'd like to call me privately, please give them my number, whoever asked that question, and I will be glad to just talk.
Okay, excellent. Be sure to do that. Next question, common activities the mentor does with the veteran, I guess the mentee on a monthly basis.
Well, I tell you what, in most courts, like in our court, we have so many folks in it that we really just see them on court day, and everything else is by phone. And so I'm speaking to the large courts. What we would do if someone needs peer mentoring, the large courts, including Buffalo, we refer them to peer specialists in the community. The VA hospital has peer specialists that will spend several hours. And it's usually organizations in the community that have peer services. But I hear in travels, they do is they talk a lot. A lot of it's talking, or just going to lunch, or going to a ball game. Maybe the guy has a job thing coming up, and if the mentor has time, he'll go with them. It's a variety of things, but the whole thing is based on trust, and the more trust that happens, the more things happen. In the beginning, probably nothing happens until the mentee got respect from the mentor. But usually to answer the question, just talk, lunch, and as they get to know each other better, some activities can happen.
The next question, in regards to legal issues and requirements, if a Veterans Treatment Court partnered with a 501c3, what I guess organizations would you recommend or would you suggest they partner with versus who they shouldn't partner with, and how they handle receiving and giving out money?
Is these on the list of the questions that we got? What question was that?
That one is question number 8.
8. Okay.
Around a little bit.
Would you discuss legal requirements? So let me tell you how, and I stand this one because I did it. when we were very small, we never thought about having a 501c3. We had 7 people in the court and four mentors. Walked into court and gave me $5,000. A true story. Older gentleman in Vietnam. I had no place to put it. I actually did what to do with it. What I ended up doing was partnering with a church. I found out that the United Way in Buffalo would set up an account for me for 5%, but I went with a church that charged me 3%, and the judge trusted the church. They were very active with incarcerated veterans. It was called Back to Basics up here. Have any legal issues? They did the work. They have a president, vice president, treasurer, secretary, but they did all the write-ups, and I had my own separate bank account. They didn't impose any restrictions on me. I wish almost now that I could go back to that, because now I'm a full-pledged C3, and there's a lot of work involved in that. So I hope I'm answering that. I didn't have any legal requirements. It was just she had to agree to it, and we went to the church, and they wrote it up, and I paid 3%, and that worked well for about 4 years. And I left them. It's a little too big, and we had to set up our own then. And one of the mentors actually set it up for me. His company was pretty good on this. I can tell you that if you do your own 501, it's kind of expensive. I just paid the insurance bill. It was $1,400. I have to pay $500 or $600 a year for things called 990 filings and things like that. You have to have meetings. As part of that, how do you give out the money? Well, we sat down as the president, vice president, secretary, and the judge, we included a judge in on this, and we agreed that we would not be voting on each giving out of money, meaning if they need a bus pass, we agreed on a procedure. And again, we do an awful lot. That's 85 to 90% of our money is bus passes. So we don't have to take a vote each time someone needs a bus pass. We have income guidelines and other guidelines, and if they fall into that, the bus pass is given. We automatically give furniture, clothes, food cards, no discussion needed. Where we do take a vote, if it's a large sum of money, like we brought 3 of the mentees' kids from Anchorage, Alaska to Buffalo, on the advice of a counselor who told us the young man really needed it. It was suicide watch, so we paid for that trip. It was very expensive. But we did then take a vote, and we have to have 3 of the 4 officers agree to it. And on that one, all 4 of them did. So you have your own procedures, but some things are just so easy, like bus passes and food and rent, that for us it's automatically approved, documented.
Looks like we've got some more questions that have come in through the question and answer panel. The first one is, have you encountered mentees that prefer to talk to civilians? So I guess instead of talking to their mentors, they'd much rather talk to someone.
That's a great question. Corwin, I asked that. I've never heard that one. They have no problem with that. In fact, let me put it the other way. If someone walks in a new case and he doesn't want to talk to the mentor, fine with me. Force them, what kind of relationship would that be? What we would do then, I would get one of my honorary mentors that we talked about yesterday and see, ask him who might he want to talk to. We have several honorary mentors in the court who are not veterans. We would set that up. I think that would be interesting. But I bet eventually we could get in there to talk to them. That would be my goal.
Our next, how does a mentor develop a relationship with a mentee? This person, some of our mentors are nervous about providing personal cell phone numbers, emails, etc. to the mentees.
That isn't a question that's on my thing. These are just coming in?
Yeah, these are questions that are coming in.
Read that one again, Carolyn.
How does a mentor develop a relationship with a mentee? I guess some of the mentors that this person that this person is involved with, that their mentors are nervous about providing personal cell phone numbers and their contact information to the mentee.
That's another great question. I'll answer that. No, they do not have to. I have 8 women mentors, and them would like their personal information given out. I'd say 3/4 of my mentors don't. And contact me then, me or the squad leader. Each of our 3 teams has a squad leader. We'll give the squad leaders a phone number, email address. They all have my phone number. That's perfectly understandable if they feel leery about that. In fact, most of our new ones, I get a new mentor, will say, Jack, I would rather my name and my phone number and email address not be given out. That's fine. They give them mine or squad leaders.
From Joanne Martinez. She asked, what type of supervision is necessary of the mentor coordinator and mentors?
The mentor, that's me, right?
Yeah.
That's a good one, yeah. I meet with the judge twice a month. He's really my boss. Getting that right, it's supervision of the mentor coordinator?
Right, yeah, that's what it looks
He's
like.
my boss. He watches what I do in court. He hears from the defendants if the mentors are not acting up to par. They'll say so in court. Courts where they'll really stand up and say, I don't think what the coordinator did was right. It would come down to a meeting with me and the judge. I think the judge is my ultimate boss and should be. And if there was a problem, he would be dealing with it with me. Answer it, do you think?
I think so. I think so. We've got more questions coming in. I think we addressed this in the last webinar, but if you want to take a minute to address it again, what are honorary mentors and what is their role?
Oh, yeah. I think first one was a Gold Star mother. She was a veteran. And we have strict rules that you have to be a veteran to be a mentor. I'm not going to say no to her. So she started the process of an honorary mentor. They sit behind us. They have shirts that says mentors on them, Buffalo Veterans Court, but they're not assigned to a case. I have 12 of them. Some of them are businessmen. They own companies. Sure want that person in there. I have one guy that owns 100 apartments. He's a veteran. He's an honorary veteran. So when a mentor goes out and sees that they need the service of that Gold Star mother, maybe it's a parent or mother or father that wants to talk to somebody, or rent or a job, we'll bring the honorary mentor out. So they're part of the team. Maybe it's more of a technical thing, but they're not technically a mentor. And I explain that to them, and they have no problem with that. So that's how we deal with it. I don't know how other folks. They could just be a resource, but so needed in the court. I'd like them there all the time, and we give them the title of an honorary mentor. You could probably name it anything.
Well, thank you for that, sir. Just going back to our list, I know we got some questions in after the last session. This is question 6.
Yep.
This question comes from a person with the Cannon County, Idaho Treatment Court. Occasionally, our judge will issue sanctions to a mentee if he misses a urine screen, drinking, or driving without a license. And the sanctions for, those infractions could be community service or community service hours or jail. And this one asks, is that a common practice?
Sure. There has to be accountability. There's sanctions, and there's positive. There's rewards. And in most of the courts that I've been in, including ours, community service is the biggest one. Think of the good you can do at community service. We clean up sometimes grave sites on Memorial Day. We put flags down. Community service is a big one. But if they screw up, and I hope I'm saying this right, the judge has to sometimes put them in jail. And that happens in all courts. Yes, there has to be, remember, some of these young men and women, there has to be recourse for actions. You're not thrown out of the program, but you're rewarded for the good things, and there's punishments for the bad. But the big one that I see is the community service. Yeah.
Okay. And moving on, question 9. What tactics have you had success with in getting mentees to engage with mentors on more than a superficial relationship level?
I thought we might answer that, but let me do that one. Again, I think I said that if they did want to engage with us, we don't force it. He said, I want to talk to you, especially the first 90 days when they're still having issues. The judge doesn't force it, nor I. I think it's really personalities. If you're really hit rock bottom, at least this is what I'm seeing in most courts, that veteran is glad to talk to another veteran. He might be the only person he trusts in that first court session. So when the judge says, would you like to speak to Jack O'Connor, Bill? I noticed that you're in the 82nd Airborne and Mr. O'Connor was many, many years ago. I have never heard anyone say no, and in the courts I visited, so things the men will do is just like any friendship. You talk, you offer advice, you offer support. He doesn't have a lot of support going, and the biggest thing I see in every court I go in is that mentor might be his only friend. I seriously mean that. The judge can put in jail, VA can say missing appointments, but that mentor will always stay positive. We'll try to push him to do the right things, but we're always going to be his friend. So.
Jack, and I'm going to go ahead and ask you some of the questions now. So we've gotten a few more in the Q&A area, and in regards to what we were previously talking about with incentives and sanctions, yes. Sharon Balsley would like to know what types of rewards or incentives do you typically give to participants?
Well, I won't say me. I'll tell you. I'll try to lump this together with all the courts I visited. Some of them have things like football tickets, a reward. Some of them have monthly raffle drawings where they get several different very positive things. In our court, the biggest one I see, and the biggest one I see in many courts, is you don't have to come to court as much. If you're screwing up in most of the courts that I go to, you probably are going to be seeing the judge every week, if he can see you every week. Some courts are not every week, but let's take a court that does sit every week. The big folks are going to graduate. They don't come in every week. They come in every month. Let's get that good, the judge, and that's the biggest positive award you can give them. They don't have to be there. They're doing that well. But every court is different. We have food cards, food baskets. Some of the courts have some really interesting, they can show tickets. It's amazing what some of the courts will throw up, or a not-for-profit will throw up. It's always fun to give an award for good behavior. I think the tough ones are the sanctions. So anything you can think of, what's good in your court. We've had people, I think I was just down in Georgia, and then some of the businesses will donate to the mentors. I don't think you can to the court. And then those items can be used as rewards. So I hope I'm answering that. But the biggest one I see is if you do really good, when we go from every week, then you go to every 2 weeks, and then near the end, it's even more.
That actually flows nicely into another question we received, which is how often does the vet have to go to court? So
yeah, every court's different, but I'll try to keep it as general as I can. Usually when they come in, remember what I said in the first 90 days, many of them are still seeing the effects of drug and alcohol and pondering their mental illness. Some of them don't believe they have it. It's called the warrior syndrome, told by the service, never to say you can't, that you're sick or anything. Come usually in the beginning every week, at least in the courts that have been around a while, so the judge can monitor them, or every 2 weeks if that's how the court meets, whatever meeting thing is. As you progress, as you get better, I can say that, and I'm not a counselor, but I notice usually after 6 months the person's getting it. They're off drugs and alcohol. They are starting to do what they're supposed to do. They can come as much as every 2, 3, or once a month. And if they fall back or relapse, the judge can change it, bring them back every week. But it depends on the court. There's a handbook that most courts have, and I think I sent it to you. And in that handbook that's given by the court to the mentee, it tells them what the rewards are and what the sanctions are and what they have to do to get either one. So that they know it up front. Here's what's going to happen if I follow the program. Here are the sanctions if I don't. And I also make the mentors read that so we all understand what the court is doing with the mentees.
Great. Perfect. Now, a two-part question. Is there a screening process for the volunteer mentors? And if so, what would disqualify a prospective mentor from participation?
Oh, great question. Again, every court's different. Some courts vet every one of them, meaning they check their criminal backgrounds. I had an option. I use it as much as I used to. If I really don't believe something, I'll run their background. What works for me, though, I have 35 service organizations up here, meaning that different chapters of the VFW, AMVETS, Vietnam Vets of America, Disabled American Veterans. Send the list out of new veterans to new mentors to all those agencies. Believe me, I'll get a phone call if someone's not telling me the truth or is bullshitting. Use my language. I'll get more from the community. And it has happened. Someone has lied about I received the Silver Star and I was shot in combat. Number one, people don't usually say that. Veterans out there know what I mean. Anyway, I'll get a little leery if someone's telling me about their medals. I'll do a check on them, and I'll find out from VA 77 that this guy is just a fraud. So I do better in getting their names out, and you have to be very careful in the vetting process. Take your time. If you believe someone isn't right, I would not be letting them sit there. I would check out more to the point of doing a criminal background check. If they say they don't want one done, you know something's wrong, don't bring in. Obviously, if someone commit murder or rape, arson, or sex offense crimes, those are out immediately. And most felonies are. So every jurisdiction's a little different. I hate to say case by case, but if you have veterans groups, that's where the coordinator comes in your area. The mentor coordinator should be close to all those groups. I'm a member of the majority of mine, and I get those names out real quick. And I've had great success finding out if someone's telling me the truth. And if they're evasive, I don't want them. If they say, I don't want you checking on me, I don't want you sending my name out, then you're not going to be a mentor. You don't have to worry about getting sued or anything. You're not paying anybody. Don't let a band or someone that you have a question, don't do it. And I discuss all mentors with the judge. Court, and I'll go, Judge, I got Bill coming in. He's got one misdemeanor 20 years ago for bad checks, but we checked him out. He's one of the real good veteran advocates in the community. Do you have any objection, Judge? I'll always run it by the judge, and I think any coordinator should. And the judge gets to know the mentors very closely. He comes down, and if the judges are listening, I think it's the most important thing. He meets with them before the court, knows them by first name. They fool around, laugh a little bit before the court starts. And when the court ends, he comes down and says, talks to how'd the day go, guys. I mean, nothing specific, but he's very close to them. And I think that's probably one of the biggest reasons a lot of the mentors stay, because the judge really believes in them and calls us the secret sauce. And tries to talk to them as much as he can. I hope I'm answering that question, but I've had some bad ones that I've had to get rid of, and it's not easy. But one mentor could cost you a program, one person that's not following it. So that's why I think it's important that you know your coordinator and that you vet people if you think you need to. And again, if you're close to service organizations, get the word on them and make it a 5 or 6 week to make decisions right away. And sometimes if the person knows that you're checking on them, they won't come back. This doesn't happen much. I don't want to be negative here, but I think it's important that, or if someone really starts screwing up while they're in the court, pull them aside, and I say it this way, get rid of them. If they're not going to follow the rules, if they're looking at someone's legal documents, we had one guy that wanted to file disability payments for a mentee. He didn't know what he was doing. He could have hurt that person. He would not give up on this, so I dismissed him. The mentee into an adjudicated service officer to do his disability claim, not someone that didn't know what he was doing. So it's hard to say that you have to let people go, but if you're that good in the beginning, I think you'll be all right. I hope I answered that correctly.
Well, Sir Connor, I actually have a question myself, and it's in regards to recruiting. Often with us providing technical assistance, we come across mentor coordinators who are having trouble recruiting mentors because of the people that are most willing to be involved as mentors are already involved, are swamped, inundated with other volunteer things that they're involved in,
Yeah.
volunteer opportunities at the VFW. Do you have any, I guess, outside the box strategies to attract, I guess, mentors who may be on the on the wall about volunteering, or just other organizations that typically wouldn't be thinking of to attract more mentors to programs?
Sure, that's a great question because I've went through those in the 7-8 years I've been doing this. You're right. Most of the real top advocates are involved in so many things that link that I sent you earlier about one of my vets who's went suicide to veteran advocate. It's hard for me to talk into coming in. Because remember, here they only have to come in every third week, so I might have a little more leeway. But in many courts that people that they most want are swamped. So what I do and what I've seen them do are the alternate places for mentors, like the VA hospital's volunteer section. Great place to get volunteers. They're usually retired Vietnam vets. They go into the hospital. They're used to talking to vets. They're all volunteers. And I'll bet a third of my mentors come from the VA hospital. And they have a lot. They're not doing a lot. The VA hospital volunteer was their biggest thing. So I recruit at a VA hospital. I'll also recruit state veteran affairs workers, retired county veteran directors. There's usually an area that they might not want to volunteer, they're retiring, but that's the person I want because they've been dealing with veterans issues. Job. They know how to file claims. They're accredited service officers. They know the problems that vets go through. So whenever someone retires from New York State Department of Veterans Affairs, I'll usually get a name and I'll try to recruit them. We have about 8 of them. And this is a little funny, but who's ever out there listening, I have a hard time getting young mentors. Most of their old farts are Vietnam vets, and I need to get young veterans. And they're so tied up with their jobs and with their family. But in Buffalo, and I just was talking to the judge yesterday at lunch, we found our biggest network for young veterans are our large local companies in Buffalo. The big legal offices that you see on TV, you all have them. They love Veterans Court, and in most places that would be the same. And they don't mind giving their attorneys an afternoon off to come over here. I probably have 15 former ag officers that are current lawyers that wouldn't be able to be mentors unless their boss let them off. Remember I told you one of them did our not-for-profit? I never thought I would see this, but it's happening, and I actually recruit these legal offices now. These folks are fantastic. They come in as lawyers. Again, remember, you're not their lawyer. They come in as good war buddies. They have some excellent insights to me with, like if someone has a warrant out of state and we don't know what to do with it. Sometimes we can get a hold of a JAG officer, which we're trying to do right now down at Fort Benning. But that's one of the places that I get them from. I'll bet in each jurisdiction there's probably another group of companies that might let their people come with the day off. You know what I mean? They can come as part of their work. So I guess it's all up to what area you're in. The VA hospitals, obviously the service organizations, VFW, VVA, Disabled American Vets, the League of Purple Heart. I'll meet with them, and sometimes I can talk guys that are retired that thought they would want to volunteer, talk them into coming and trying the court for several weeks. If you don't like it, you can always leave. So I see each area is different. But one I'm intrigued with here is the law offices that are giving me young people. I'm glad we have them. So I hope I'm answering your question. Each area is so different. University, I'm sorry, I meet with, if you have a university near you. They all have an Afghan-Iraq association. They get together on campus. I go every 3 months to the one at the University of Buffalo, and I've recruited about 5 from there. It's an ongoing process because people come and go, and that is a definite. So if you're a coordinator, you're constantly looking for new people because, especially in the winter, if you have mostly older vets, they all go to Florida. I have a real problem for 3 months up in Buffalo here, and we have to bring in folks. So I'm answering your question, but I would think of the hospital, the university, service organizations, and that's about it.
That's a great answer. Thank you, Jack. Next question is, what type of training should a Veterans Treatment Court provide to the mentors?
That's a great question. Again, let's look at the type of courts. If I was in Tulsa, a good friend that's a coordinator there, San Diego, Randy's in San Diego, they have not-for-profits that run training sessions for them. They're very structured with money for materials and travel. Most of the courts that I work with, though, do not have this. And what I do is I'm looking for someone that's a good listener. And I get out in the 5-week process that we have to become a mentor. I just want someone not putting a lot of stress on the mentor. He's a friend, remember we talked yesterday, and he refers people out. He doesn't have to go out in the community. He doesn't have to get stressed out. If someone needs unemployment, he has that resource list to give a phone number to someone at the unemployment office that will talk the vet in. If someone needs an apartment, the mentor doesn't have to do it. So in the program that I have, where you're just a friend and you're referring out, there's not a lot of stress on the mentor. In a small program where one-on-one, where they're actually meeting in the community, I think that's a little harder because you're out talking to them and trying to help them personally. Let me see, I'm answering that all the way there. What else was there? I think.
Excellent. We've got some more questions that have come in too. This one's from Phil Turner in Indiana. You said they've recently been made aware of the Veterans Administration.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kerwin. I was having a senior moment.
It's fine.
I can laugh out there. I actually forgot the rest of the question. You know, it's so hard in training. What we do is I can't get 45 mentors together for one session. The mentors come every 3 weeks. What I do is twice a month, after the court, I'll bring in organizations like unemployment, Catholic Charities, labor, housing, whatever's new and interesting in the community. They have 45 minutes to talk to us. That's it, because these guys are tired from a full day. And I have that kind of training. When we first come in, the court will come in and actually explain what the court's about. We do that about once a month for new mentors. The court coordinator goes through exactly what the Veterans Court's about, and all new mentors have to go there, along with the mentees for that month. So I try to do training on a weekly basis. Now, it's different. If your coordinator can get everyone together, that'd be nice. If you could sit down with all at one time and bring in your unemployment office or bring in your disability office. It's good to give the mentors all the they can get. Even though they're referring people out, I want them to know what Catholic Charities does. I want them to know what VA 77 does with his food pantry. Try to do that twice a month.
Yeah, this question is from Phil Turner in Indiana. He said they've recently been aware of the VA, that the VA is looking into designating National Justice Outreach representative to support the VA Justice Outreach and develop courts across the U.S. He's wondering if you've heard anything on this.
Yeah, there is. I can get you the name. I have to think now. There is a coordinator at the VA. I think he's down in Kentucky. He runs all the VJOs, or that's his job, across the nation. I'll get that to you if you can get it out to all the participants. It's just sent. And if there's a problem with a VA not cooperating, a call to him will help straighten it out. So I'll try to get that name, and I'm going to try to find it before I get off today. But if I can't, I'll get it to you, Kerwin. But there's a petition now established for all the VJOs, and the court really is having a problem with the VA, they can call this number.
We'll be sure to send out that information afterwards. And then another question we have is from an individual who says they're a new court and their judge is about to remove the first mentee from the court program for not complying. Is there anything the mentor needs to do or be aware of in this situation?
No, it's a sad thing. It happens. We have an 8.5% recidivism rate, so I'm so happy that people graduate from the court and we have that low of a recidivism rate. But there are people that just don't want to do it, and they're thrown out for whatever reason. If the mentor wants to stay up with them, there's one that I keep up with. I'm not going to bury him. He left. In fact, he had to do some jail time, but I still see him, and I'm more than glad to sit and talk to him. Now, there's nothing. What can the mentor do? To be thrown out of the program, he must have done something very serious, and that happens. But in my program, if he wants to still talk to the guy, sure, why not? In fact, what we do, and I can tell the larger courts do, open up our court. We had a situation once where someone actually approached the judge very, very fast, and he was stopped by the sheriff, and what he yelled was, "Do I have to get arrested to get help?" Never forgot that, because here we are in this veterans court in Buffalo, and we're doing everything we can for young and women who have troubles with the law. And here's saying, I need help. So open the door now an hour early, and if they want to talk to a mentor, we're there about an hour and a half before the court starts, I'll assign a mentor to them. And usually, I was real worried about this when we started it. I thought they were going to be asking for money, and I'd have a problem with that because my 501 wouldn't let me do that. They're not. I'll give you an example. A young Marine right out of Afghanistan, he really doesn't know how to apply for certain benefits. He's too proud to ask anyone else, but would love to sit down with another Marine who knows what he's talking about, who help him. So I've been very proud of this. We call it the line on the left, and we usually have about 5 or 6 servicemen that'll come in every Tuesday, and it's another way mentors can help in the community. So we've really expanded what we do. And again, it's more they trust talking to another veteran. And remember, at that resource book, you can help them. It usually takes about 15 minutes, and they're on their way. That's it for that.
Well, then this next question comes from, I hope I'm not missing the name, Maybelline Barrera. Says, since you've mentioned the need for younger mentors, what is your opinion on having honorary mentors? I think she means students at a local university serving as honorary mentors, or even into that, I guess, active military serving as mentors.
Well, it's a great question. Active military. I don't know how to answer that because that's never happened here. I'd be surprised that the base commander might want. I have to think that one through. Active military. We don't want police or probation officers. We don't want them mentors. That's putting them in jeopardy, and we think a lot of our guys wouldn't talk to them. But using active military, I've never thought that one through. Sorry, answering your questions, but students, what you want as an honorary mentor is someone that has a service that is so beneficial to the veteran that you want them in court. Again, I said the guy that owns all these apartments, another man that a company, a Gold Star mother. I want them in the court. They have a service that our folks need. They're just not veterans. If you have a shortage of that person would call me. If you want to give my phone number, I'd like to talk to them, see what area they're from. There are so many service organizations. They seem to be in the country. I would go there and see if I could get a meeting with BLB and AMVETS and Iraqi, Afghan, and say, I need some help here. I need some mentors. Who do you suggest? So I'm answering this, but if you want that person to contact me, I'd love to talk to them.
Jack. And I think she was actually saying that they have an honorary mentor who is a student at the university, and she was wondering if it would be appropriate for them to be recruiting mentors from the university.
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. I did all that talking and I missed the question. Yeah, anyone that can help recruit, that sounds fantastic. I might do that. I don't have to go to the University of Buffalo. If I had some young student that was really into this, God bless him. If he could get me some mentors, not just with the university, if someone, the Gold Star mother I told you about, she's always sending me mentors. She meets them in her speeches and travels. Yes, that's a great idea. That I think a mentor coordinator would love to have help like that.
Great. And so another question that is in reference to what we were speaking about earlier with secondary trauma, an individual asks, what types of things can be done so the mentors don't feel overwhelmed?
That's another great question. Remember yesterday I overwhelmed my mentors in the beginning when those that weren't here, or if I said it too quickly, we were one-on-one, and I would have them doing 2 hours a week in phone calls, and life was good in one. When it got 3-in-1, life wasn't good. The mentors were stressed out in the time they could spend with each person. They couldn't go to the places that the mentees wanted them to, and a couple of them quit. So I think the coordinator has to really make sure he doesn't place too much stress on mentors, and that usually happens when you go from 2 to 3 mentees per mentor. That's when you have to, in my opinion, go to resource book and start referring things out. And if they need real peer counseling, go to VA. VA hospitals have peer mentors. Look in your community for organizations that have veteran peer services. But don't stress the mentors out. We actually now, I won't say have fun in court, but mentors are showing up now because they know I'm not going to send them someplace that they're not too familiar with or put some more on them. I have to keep it fairly simple. To keep them, most of mine are retired. Young ones will take on more, but some of us old folks, we're kind of happy with just one-on-one. So the referring out works well for me with my affiliation with the VA hospital, and they've agreed to give peer mentoring services to guys because we just can't handle it. We're at 4 mentees per mentor. So and the coordinator has to watch the mentors to make sure that if they are on PTSD, that they're not stressing them out or bringing back symptoms. And that is something only a coordinator can tell. I hope I'm answering this question right.
Absolutely. Thank you. And then we had another one. This was number 5 on the list of questions we received. So there were a number of different components to this. One part was to address suicide and suicide risk, which you've already done. And then they asked that you kind of discuss the benefit of having one mentor for a mentee throughout the court process. Also, the concept of a mentor coordinator giving email-informed support if the primary mentor is not available. And then additionally, where the court stands with the mentee in a court review.
Wow, that's good. 3 great questions there. I want to go back to the suicide one first.
Sure.
I'd like to mention that we do have the VA come in and do one of those training sessions. The new mentors. Usually I wait till there's like 3 or 4 of them, and such a turnover, it doesn't take long to have 3 or 4. And the VA will talk about suicide risk. We'll talk about some of the experiences that they're going to have in talking to mentees. Some of our mentees are on a suicide watch. And so the mentors have to be trained and decide what to look for, when to immediately go to the coordinator and say, Jack, I think my mentee is contemplating suicide. We try to bring in this training at least every 2 months, at the most every 3 months, and we all hear it again. And then there's the problem. If a suicide does happen, you have to make sure the mentor gets correct counseling also. I love the benefit of one mentor per mentee. I encourage that so much. I wish I could go back to those days when I had one mentor to one mentee. If you can get away with having the mentor coordinator be able to stay informed if the mentor isn't there, do that as long as you can. Yes, we've gotten so big we can't. I have to do a round robin. But I tell you, whenever the original mentor is there, remember they only come in every 3 weeks with us, he'll immediately pick up that book and the mentee will remember him. And even if he's not there, sometimes the secondary mentor will just give him a phone and say, why don't you give Jason a call? He's at work. He couldn't be here, but he wanted to talk to you. So if you can do that and, stay with one-on-one, good. I think your problem's going to happen, whoever asked me this question, when you get 3 or 4 mentees per mentor, the coordinator might not be able to handle that and keep one-on-one, if that makes sense. Hugh McLean just sent me a little note I seen here. Go ahead.
Yes. Oh, I know we're winding down on time. We have a couple more questions. Next question, and it's number 1 on our sheet. What steps are recommended to start the process for a county veteran treatment court?
I get called all the time on this. Great question. I'll get some concerned individuals. I think this person is a member of VSO. You have to get a judge. No matter how committed you are as the head of VVA 77, you're not going to start a mentor court. You have to find a judge in your community that will do this. And there's a whole process for that. The judge has to get the approval of the chief judge and maybe a judge after him. It's not an easy approval. But it happens. There's close to 300 courts now. So I'd say the first step is to try to find a judge. After that, there's major training available to you from Justice for Vets. Go to the website, justiceforvets.org. They train new courts. They'll send people to your court. They'll send you to other courts. To start it off, you have to find a judge. If you can't find a judge and get approval to do it, you're not going to get it done. I hope I'm answering your question. If legislation I see here for one VC to help another, fantastic. I haven't seen that one. But if your state has money for training, like some states, Georgia has an excellent state program. Pennsylvania has an excellent program. Tennessee, I don't want to be missing anyone. California, Texas. States are getting into it now, and they have training. So to this person, one other thing I'd say is maybe there's a veterans court nearby, and you'd go there and ask that question. Judge, I'm from the neighboring county here. Do you know anyone in our county, a judge that might be interested? So I hope I'm answering this, but you got to start by finding a judge that'll do it. And the judge knows then what processes he has to go through to start a veterans court. Not easy. It can be done, as it's been done in 300 courts.
We're almost out of time, but we do have one more question that I was hoping you could address. Does the mentor coordinator attend staffings?
Oh, geez, that's a great question. Who answered that? Probably somebody knows. It varies. I used to go to staffing. I don't anymore. Because, at least this is my info, I don't really need to know what that person was convicted of. I don't really need to know if he's a paranoid schizophrenic. What my job is as a mentor coordinator is to support him and to get him to a resource. I found out that if I tell some of my mentors what the actual crime was, they back away from it. I'm not saying you can't do that. 3/4 of the courts that I've been in, the mentor coordinator goes to the staffing. I should have started that way. I'm sorry. Let's back up. In the majority of the courts, the coordinator goes there. Some of the problems a coordinator can have going is the probation officer might say, I want you to tell me what the hell's going on. And the coordinator is going to go, no, I'm not. At least that he should be doing. I guess those conversations are confidential. But so about 3/4 go and about 1/4 don't. I know all people on staffing. The National supports me on this. I think the National says that the mentor really is a guide. He's there to help the mentor, the mentee. and not a functional paid part of the court. The coordinator can be paid in that situation if they're paid by the court. Of course they're going to go. ELSA pays the coordinator's salary. He has to go. And it's a very interesting situation how he has to deal with that. If I'm answering this question. So some go and some don't. Majority go and some don't. I hope you're that right. Hello?
Well, since we're just about out of time, and there's so many questions, and I know people will have more that percolate, so I'm thinking that maybe we'll follow up and see maybe in 2 weeks whether there's interest in scheduling a follow-up. Would that be something you'd be willing to do, Jack?
Oh, sure, no problem. In fact, I have no problem with you giving out my email address, and if people want to email me, I'd be glad to, especially the veteran mentors and coordinators in the audience. Judge would probably be better off talking to Russell or another Veterans Court judge.
So I think we're just a little bit over time. Kerwin or Monica, anything you want to say in closing, or Jack?
No, everyone's still on the line. I commend you for caring enough about veterans to do this. I can tell you that, and I'm director of Medicaid. I thought I did some pretty good things. I've never done anything is working with Judge Russell in the Buffalo Veterans Court and all the mentors I have, the graduates. We have about 160 graduates. I know them all by name. And it's so great to see someone go from very close to prison to being a model citizen again. So for all of you contemplating courts and being mentors, do it. It'll be the best thing that you ever get into.
Thanks, Jack. And I just want to say, just so everyone is aware, we will be sending out next week email with a link to the recordings of today's session and Wednesday's session, as well as the PowerPoint slides and the other supplemental documents, as well as some contact information that Jack mentioned throughout these presentations. So keep an eye out for that email.
I just wanted to say, on our website, we have a number of documents relating to mentor courts, handbooks, application forms, whatever we can have. If people have them, please, if you have them, send them on, and we'll post them so that people at least can share information.